Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for stopping by once again. I just have a few things I want to share with you. The first among them being the newsletter. Those of you who have been around here for some time recognize how long it takes me to put one of these things together. Not just a simple newsletter, but this is a report from Panama, as they're called, and they tend to go into substantially more detail. And I normally don't do more than 2 in a year, sometimes 3, because it has to be substantial enough for me to go to that much trouble. And it is a terrific amount of work. I go through a lot of stats. This is what I've been doing all my life, decades. So I'm used to it, and I'm very fussy. So I do my best to try to provide something that's useful, intelligible, and interesting to you. Give you a better idea of where Panama fits in the world today and where it might fit into your life. So that is making progress. And this last week especially, I finally had a breakthrough, and I just managed to get the sections set up. I've chosen most of the statistics I'm going to use, although that will change a couple of times, I'm sure, until that's over. And it's now beginning to fall together into a format, into an outline form. And I will have to fill it in with the text and so forth and whatever. And that's what I'm working on. So it may be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Most people know, he says that, then he means at least 3 weeks. But I am getting closer to it, and I want to get it done. What's going to happen is that if you're not familiar with this, what happens is that I put it out here in a YouTube video, but you don't always get notified of those, so you don't see them. And then you may miss that. It's up at the Retirement Way site. People rarely go up there to check out the reports section, which is where it's located, and so on. So if you're really interested in getting them, and that's what probably the most widely read thing or heard or whatever that I do here, then all you have to do is go to retirementwave.com. I'll put a link down below. Go to any page on the site, put in your email address, and bingo, you will be subscribed. And you can always unsubscribe right from the email that comes to you. At the bottom it says unsubscribe. You can do that anytime you want to, and there is no advertising. And basically, what would be in this instance is a introductory letter, and attached to it or linked to a PDF version that you can download and read it when you have the chance. Put the time aside for that. It tends to be fairly lengthy, but as I say, most of it is really charts and graphs, and so it's not all text, thank heavens. All right, that is just to you. If you want to do that, please feel free to do so. If not, as I say, I'll be repeating it from time to time until the day it comes out, and we'll see how it works. It's fine with me. Whatever works for you. Now, a couple items here that I think are useful. Pull them up. And nice, just in passing, Standard & Poor's, one of the 3 major international agencies that give a credit rating to a nation and its bonds, has just raised us. We have remained in the investment grade territory, which is the upper level, where you want to be. I think there are 3, possibly 4 nations in Latin America that are up there. And we've been in there for quite a while now. And we had been put on negative status, as did many others, to see how we dealt with the pandemic and so forth. We've done well as far as they're concerned, so we are back to stable. And okay, fair enough. That's a plus, and it means we will get lower interest rates when we do borrow money. And as a rule, Panama, anyhow, regardless of what its rating is, tends to get lower than the people same rating, or even higher. We tend to get lower. We pay our bills. The canal is good for that. Now, the next thing I want to mention too, that's a very big positive from from my perspective particularly, but from everybody's, I think. The U.S. government has offered us an opportunity to get involved in the creation of a new link on the supply chain for semiconductors, the chips you hear about all the time. And basically what it boils down to, this is the basic level, is for the testing of the semiconductors, their packaging, and their distribution. That sounds so simple, but it's not like throwing a teddy bear in a box and sending it into DHL or FedEx. Not at all. I worked as an intern ages ago with IBM, but it was mainframes. I can tell you these things are very fussy. And so when we say testing, we mean testing, and packaging has to be done properly, and then the whole distribution system has to work well. It is the entry level, but it's an important entry level. It's not a drop in the bucket either. It will probably be the investment, the U.S. investment of some $400 to $600 million. It will lead to the creation of a factory. It's estimated at 40,000 square meters. Now that's most for Europe. No, that's 10 hectares. What am I saying? 4 hectares, not 10, but close to 10 acres. And that will be, they'll be employing, they anticipate employing 3,000 employees. This is all being set up and organized here and elsewhere too. And they're down the road working on this. So South Korea will be providing the teams here to train our folks in what they need to know. And the implication, and it's a stated implication, it's clear implication, is that if they train well and they come up in the ranks and what have you, they show the promise, they can be trained up and we can go on to the production level. But that is a few years down the road. So what we're doing now is going to be incredibly important to us. It will bring in a good deal of income, and it will give an opportunity to a lot of our young people to get into trades that they might not ever, have an opportunity to get into easily. They'd have to be rich and leave the country to do it. Now they can get started here, and it's the sort of work where if you do well, you can go someplace with it. So I'm very pleased that that's happening. It will not happen overnight. It will take some time. They have studies to be done. They have to, find the land and everything else, and come to the interstate agreements between Panama and the U.S. So these things have to be taken care of. But insofar as most people I know here, they're fine. Bring it on. This is a good idea. We'd be very happy to have it, because otherwise we might not get another chance like this. So good. All right. And I just wanted to share a map, sort of an unusual map with you. Now, I'm going to show you the old map. Put that up there. Okay. This is the map of the provinces and the comarcas. The comarcas are the areas, well, they're actually, if you can read them in the little tiny print, they are clearly marked as comarcas. In 2 provinces, there are areas that are cross-hatched with small names on them. Those are district-level comarcas. It's the same basic idea. The comarca is left to the indigenous people. They run it as they see fit on a day-to-day basis. They are citizens of Panama. They are Panamanians to the core, and they elect members to the National Assembly. They vote for president. They do the whole 9 yards. But by agreement, within their borders, they have a great deal of control over day-to-day activity. The land in a comarca, the indigenous tribe, there's one tribe associated with each piece of land as a rule. It's shared in a couple cases between tribes. But these tribal nations are very careful to see to it that they have the kind of control over the land that saves it the way they want it saved. Among other things, everybody in the tribe owns it. It's tribally owned, and no individual can sell anything. No individual has title. The comarca itself, the indigenous groups, have title to the land as a whole. And they won't sell it, they will not sell it, they will not sell it, so forget it. They can rent out some areas sometimes, it's possible, and arrangements can be made, but oh boy, they're very tough on it. And we understand that. No, it's just the way it is. So you can't buy there. It's as simple as that. So as part of the Panama map, that map you see up on the screen now, that ain't the one that really covers the area that you can purchase in. It covers the comarcas, which also you can visit when you want to, and I hope you get the chance to do so because it's fun. But the map for you, let me get it up, is this one. You'll notice that it's a little skinnier than the old one. Let's go back to the old one for a second. Alrighty, and now back to the new one. Okay, what happened? Well, over on the far right, you have Colombia. The big white area there now separates us from, seemingly from Colombia. That's the Darien Gap, part of Darien Province. And that is not area that you can buy in. The white blots, so to speak, in the southern part, and another section to its north are comarcas for the Embragunan group. And then beyond that, especially over the yellow province here, well, we can go back to the old and see it for a moment. There you go. You can see the pink area up there. That is Gunayala, another comarca, and that area too. And you see these two cross-hatched areas just below it. They're in provinces, but they are what are called district-level comarcas, and they're operated as if they were in a comarca, but they're actually in provinces. They're too small, and the populations are too small to justify turning them into full-fledged comarcas. So those are all gone in this other map, and you can see it makes a big difference. Over to the left, another big difference. Now, once again, I'm going to go back to the old map, and you see a big purple spots there. That is the comarca Ngobe Bugle. It's called Nobe in Spanish. But anyhow, it's two tribes, the Ngobe and the Bugle. They get along quite well with each other, as you might imagine. Hopefully, it will always be so. That's the largest thing. Ngobe are the largest tribal nation in Panama by a wide distance over the Guna, who are number 2. I don't have their statistic right at the moment. I would assume it's going to be pushing up around 300,000. Their area drops out too. So we get back to the other map, and you see that big white space up there. Now, mind you, we haven't lost any of these things. Oh, and yes, a yellow island to the south will have disappeared. That's Coiba, which is a protected area and one of our big national parks. There are other national parks here. Believe me, we have national parks. Right up here on the edge or within the city limits of Panama City, we have one national park. It's pretty good size, and it's a wonderful park. Okay. One of the few capital cities to have such a natural wild park where you have wildlife and the plant life and everything else running around loose, and it's inside the city limits. So that's pretty cool. But in any event, so I haven't bothered with all that. There's just too much of that. But what you're seeing here now is the remains, and that'll be the area you'll be looking at as the possibility for living or renting, for that matter. And that red arrow down there, that's simply the area which is where, as we've discussed in the past, the people can block the Pan American Highway that has to run. They're not allowed in the comarca, right? At least that has not been worked out yet, ever to happen. So the Pan American runs right up that orange section, and it's where the traffic gets stopped when there's a protest, particularly by the Ngobe, who are to the north of it, or other groups in the local area. Or, for that matter, people coming out of Panama City. You never know, but it's usually the local folks. About once every decade, it gets serious, and it was last year, and so forth. It's part and parcel of how we operate here, because there would be a lot of other small incidents like that with local roads, because the community, its water supply is lacking something, or something's not working, and no one is listening to them, so they block a local road. And it's choreographed in 98% of the incidents, in that they go out, they block the traffic. The police come out, and they usually have been notified in advance it's going to happen, but they come out anyhow, and they keep the peace, and they stop the traffic, and they talk to people, and they say, what is it you want to do? And they say, we demand that we speak to the Minister of Health or the Minister of Agriculture or somebody from the ministry. They usually go with the top man, but they'll settle for something less, usually, not always. And the police take the message back, or they call it back in, to the government offices, and there's much talking, and then somebody gets assigned to it from the government agency and ministry, and comes out and talks to them, and if they can't give them an answer that's going to satisfy them there right then they will set up a meeting for the ministry officials and for the community leaders to sit down and work something out. It is almost it's almost a dance. It's, as I say, it's almost choreographed. But it's no different than it would be any country. You know, countries have their own ways of protesting. That's our way of protesting here. If it's really serious and people are deeply, deeply disturbed, we've been known to set fire to tires, which cause a lot of smoke and fire it look very, very dramatic. It's nothing compared to what goes on in standard operating procedure in Latin American countries all over the world, and we see far worse things happening in countries, even in North America and certainly Europe, and various in fact, everywhere in Latin America except here. We keep it down to this, and this is about as bad as it gets, and it's very rare. So I just mentioned it to you. That's where it happens when it's one of these big things, as it was last year. And recently, as they said, we're going to do it again because you didn't do what you said you were going to do, and they took care of that in 24 hours. So we're set for now. So that's the map of Panama, seen by somebody who's coming to live here and to buy or to rent. That's actually what you're going to be looking at. But in fact, it just also shows you there where you can go and see the country in its wildest state as it was a long time ago. You have to have permissions to go into the comarcas and so forth, and you should have a guide and so forth. But there are tour groups that go in. Do it. For God's sakes, why not? What an opportunity. I would not go down to the Darien Gap, which I think, given all the troubles we've been having with immigrants coming through or migrants on their way to the U.S., please, leave these folks alone. We've got plenty of other places that are very interesting to see, too. So that's that. I wanted to share that with you and the news that came with it, and I still look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for stopping by today.